Welcome back to the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People, with your host, Gabrielle Mazar. On today's episode, Gabrielle interviews SeanBrown of Bliss Commercial Realty. We're diving into another ugly side of this pandemic as we look at commercial real estate, tenant leases, and how we can make the best out of this situation as a small business. We will discuss trends as well as differences between COVID-19's effect versus 9/11 and the 2008 recession. And now here's your host, personal trainer and stretch therapist, Gabrielle Mazar.
Welcome back to the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People. I am your host, Gabby Mazar. And on today's episode, we are taking a look at a different side of this pandemic. Last week, we talked about the medical side, perspective from a doctor. Today, I want to talk to SeanBrown from Bliss Realty. What is it?
Bliss Commercial Realty, yeah.
Bliss Commercial Realty, sorry. And I want to talk about what is happening with basically the economy. So we know what's happening medically. We know what's happening with people and deaths and statistics and kind of how the media is making everything all crazy. So I want to dive into what is happening, on a personal level, what people are actually seeing, and not just what the hysteria of whatever the media is showing us. So welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So you have been in real estate, in small business, franchising for many years. So I know that your perspective is personal. You've seen what's gone on, especially during 2008, during, that recession and everything. So tell me a little bit about what you see, what's going on right now.
Well, like you said, I've had 25 years experience in the commercial real estate arena, both as a commercial real estate agent, as a small business owner, as a development agent, and as a restaurant owner. So I have lots of experience. And obviously there's similarities between now and 2008, but there's also a lot of differences. So this happened, of course, overnight. Literally, 6 weeks ago, the economy was buzzing along very strong. And the only real reason that, in fact, I saw a great presentation just 2 months ago from a noted economist from California who said the only thing that can derail this economy is a disruption or an anomaly. Well, we had that anomaly.
There you
go. so literally that came along, and we have a situation where through the effects of social distancing and government regulations, we have people are staying at home. A large number of businesses are not able to operate at their full capacity,
or at all.
Yeah. So we have a lot of restaurants or businesses that can only be takeout and delivery. So their revenue streams are anywhere from 30 to 50% of what they normally would be.
I think I estimated that I'm down about 70%.
Yeah.
Even with even with online classes and doing like my own personal clients and online too. So we definitely are seeing the hit in the fitness industry as well.
Yeah, the fitness industry is probably hit as hard because, again, you can't operate at full capacity. So there's huge. The effects on the economy are going to be huge. So I can talk about basically what's going to happen with commercial real estate and a little bit of the best thing that tenants can do in their relations with landlords at this point in time. So
yeah, so tell us a little bit. So like for me, my landlord, I've already talked to him and we've kind of worked out a plan, but he doesn't own a ton of properties, so he's not like commercial company that owns, lots of properties and strip malls. He just owns my personal building. So it makes it a little easier for me to just kind of have a conversation with him. Whereas I know other business owners are in the position where the landlords are locked them out and said, no, sorry, I don't care. And it's very difficult because, especially in this time, you're talking not just 5,000, 10,000, 15 and $20,000 a month. And especially with restaurants, their margins are very small. So you look at other industries and think, other industries have a margin of maybe 15 to 25%, whereas restaurants are between 3 and 9%. So their margins are small to begin with. And if people are in a position where they're having a very difficult time, this is devastating.
Yes, it definitely is. My biggest advice, well, first thing I would do is definitely look at the Paycheck Protection Program. So, and yes, the money did run out on Thursday or Friday. However, they are looking at putting another 250 billion into the program. And
that would be great.
so, and I would recommend, going, if you have a loan that you currently have on your business, work with your current lender. Obviously, your current lender is going to have a vested interest in the survival of your business, and so definitely work with them. They will bump you to the top of the list in terms of getting that in. The only exception is if your bank is Wells Fargo, because Wells Fargo has a limitation due to the sanctions that they received before, and so if your bank is Wells Fargo that you have your loan through, I would find a different bank to apply to, because Wells Fargo is pretty backed up. So, but
okay.
The Paycheck Protection Program is a great program. I did it for my other business. I've already gotten funded for it. You're allowed to use 75. You're required to use 75% of the proceeds toward payroll, but it's basically based on 2.5 months of your 2019 payroll. Or if you're a new business, you can use an 8-week period prior to the shutdown as a baseline too. So you get 2.5 months, and you have to use 75% of it toward payroll, but you're allowed to use the other 20.5% toward rent, utilities, and interest payments on a mortgage. So there's definitely a huge advantage to that, and if you comply with that, and you hire back your employees, you're allowed to, there's a chance that it's forgivable, that the loan is forgivable, very high chance that it's forgivable.
Yeah.
So definitely go that route. And then work with your landlord. What I'm telling everybody from a commercial real estate standpoint is to work with your landlord. And every landlord tenant situation is unique, just like you talked about before. But the first thing to do is look at your lease.
Right.
Review your lease, look at your lease options. And this is where, the negotiations up front are important, to get the strongest leases possible. The stronger lease you have, the more negotiating power you have.
Yeah. And you may be able to even get out of your lease for something like this, because there's certain clauses that allow termination of the lease by either party.
Yes. So there's definitely review your lease. Work with your landlord. Your landlord. The tough thing with landlords is that they're also in the same situation with their lenders. However, this is a fluid situation that is changing daily, and there's talk now in Congress that Congress may act to help landlords and with their lender in their situation with their lenders, and provide relief somehow to landlords. So if that goes through, that's another thing that would give negotiation to tenants to be able to get relief as well.
Right.
So
because what we're seeing
is still fluid.
What we're seeing is that if the tenant's not paying their rent, then it's the possibility that the landlord may not be able to pay their mortgage or whatever loan they have. So they are, and that's, when I spoke with my landlord, that's exactly what he said. I'm in the same boat. My business is down huge, and I still have my bills to pay, and, this is what I'm doing. You should do this, you should try that. So, having that paycheck protection plan, still look for those options. I've actually went out and applied for different grants for small businesses. I mean, they're out there. There are charities. There are groups that help small businesses. There's groups that help bartenders, a bartender relief fund or something, U.S. bartender relief fund. So there are plenty of options. So don't get discouraged is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. It's just, there's a lot out there to help small businesses, even though we see this huge bailout for, airlines and banks and everything. There is stuff out there this time to help us.
And I think there's going to be more coming. So the biggest thing is to communicate. If you're not able to pay your rent with your landlord, then the biggest thing is to communicate to them. The governor's stay did prevent commercial evictions until the end of May.
90 days, I think, was it?
May 31st. So there's a little bit of confusion on it. Some people think that it prohibits late fees, but it only encourages landlords not to charge late fees. It doesn't prohibit them. The only thing that it prohibits landlords from doing is evicting someone, and it's only if they were affected by the COVID-19. If you're already behind in your rent, or you're already in default with your rent, the landlord can still evict you. So it's only if you were current prior to COVID-19, to the quarantine, and then fell behind or went into default because of that. That is the only reason that you would be they were not able to evict you. So it actually doesn't do that much, but it does give some time for landlords and tenants and lenders to work it out, where, the commercial real estate world is a delicate ecosystem with all three have to exist and have to be able to thrive in order for all, we all have to be successful together. So, and the reality is that there's not a line, if the landlord does, evict you, right now there's not a line of people who want to lease the space.
Right.
So, so it's in the landlord's best interest to work with you as well in most cases. So sometimes if the landlord is not working with you, it's usually because they're not able to with the lender.
Do you think that we're going to see a trend after this in commercial property renting for like a more competitive rental market?
Definitely. So we're seeing a couple numbers that definitely want to share today. Is that I've heard, we don't have any hard numbers, but we've heard that only about 20 to 30% of tenants in Arizona paid their April rent. So that's a huge number. So so only 20 to 30% paid their April rent, and a lot of people are on a wait and see mode. So, and then we're also, we're forecasting, it depends a lot on the sector. So, retail is obviously a mess, because it's, heavily in terms of retail was already shifting because so much of commerce had gone to e-commerce online. And so retail had shifted more toward restaurants and experiential type uses. Well, experiential type uses like Pilates studios and bowling and gyms and entertainment. They're the ones that are shut down right now. So the retail, if you're in retail, retail's a mess. We're expecting rents. The forecast for rents anyway is to decrease as much as 10% in the short term. Meaning the next, for the next 12 to 18 months. So we're definitely going to see lower rents. I don't know if definitely, but that's the forecast, is that we're going to see lower rents on the retail side.
And with that too, you have a little bit more of a negotiating power as well from the tenant side, because, obviously people are trying to get people into their space. So, if you're in, say, a month-to-month lease, or you're in a position where you can terminate your lease, you do have options as well to find something maybe in the next 6 to 12 months that will be a better fit for you anyway. So that is also, I guess, a positive for the small business, not necessarily for the landlord.
Yeah. The other option is if you really like the space you're in, and your lease is coming up for renewal within the next couple of years, this might be a good opportunity to go back to your landlord and negotiate a, incorporated with maybe some rent abatement during this time period. That's where you have some leverage to go back to the landlord and say, okay, listen, I can't make my rent these couple months, but I want to stay. Let's talk about an extension. So you could do an extension at a lower rate than you may be paying. You might actually end up being able to save money over the long run and lock in your location for a longer period. Because it definitely, and I specialize in tenant representation. And so we've been in a market for the last 3 or 4 years that's been very much a landlord's market. So, I mean, we negotiate and we do get a lot of concessions, but depending on the space, it's been a lot of competition for spaces. So this is definitely, puts it more into a tenant's market, particularly in retail and office. So not quite as much in terms of industrial. Industrial is still expected to remain, pretty strong, because obviously there's been a shift e-commerce. And so last mile distributors and warehouses, the demand is actually increased for those type of spaces.
Amazon.
So, Amazon, and
2.8 billion or something like that, 280 billion. I don't know. He made some
grocery stores,
absurd amount of money. Yeah.
Yeah, grocery stores and all that. So there's it depends a little bit on the sector, but definitely in retail, the forecast is for rents to go down, as well as office as well. So office is interesting. I don't know whether there are probably going to be some people who are working from home or just going to decide that they just rather work from home.
Yeah.
So the demand is probably going to be down as well.
I think that's something we're seeing now, is how much we can go online, how much we can survive without even being in the office, which would be great for traffic, by the way. But I guess not so much for commercial real estate. But yeah, we're seeing how we adapted to this as well, how we took this shift. I mean, pretty much immediately, like you said, everything came to a screeching halt basically in a day. And over the course of the last 4 to 6 weeks, everything has changed. And I think we've seen, we saw this in 2008, we saw this in 2001, but this situation is so very different because this time we're not, we don't know. There is so much unknown here in this situation. There's so much just confusion, and it's so very day by day by day by day that I think people are just lost.
Well, and I think a lot of the initial forecasts were that the economy would rebound very quickly, and people are starting to temper that a little bit. And I don't think it will be like 2008, where it took literally years before we recovered, and it was a slow build back up. I mean, really, the economy was building for like almost 11 years.
Yeah.
We had 11 years of actually one of the longest growing economies in history, from the Great Recession until now, because it was a slow buildup. And all the initial forecast was that this would be a quick rebound. But the thing that they didn't really take into effect, that people are starting to realize now, is that May 1st, we're going to start seeing restrictions lifted, and things are going to start going back a little bit to normal. But there's going to be a lot of new normals, and kind of after 9/11, you're going to go to restaurants, and the employees are going to be wearing masks, and there's going to be probably in a lot of states, maybe not in Arizona, but in a lot of states, restaurants are going to be required to operate at 50% capacity,
right?
And create separation. So there's going to be capacity reduction. So there's going to be, and a lot of people, even though we've passed, the forecasts now are showing that we're starting to pass the peak of the infections. Coronavirus is still going to be around. And it's not like
they say, I think, 12 to 24 months
Yeah.
before they will either have a vaccine or we will start to see everything kind of go down. So it's not, even if we do reopen, we are still going to see this infection around. We are
Yes.
still going to see this virus, and it's not going away. So we do have to be diligent about still keeping distance and still keeping those restrictions, but at the same time, understanding that we do have to keep our economy going, otherwise everything will collapse. And that goes for all businesses. It's not just us small businesses that are affected now. I know Yelp did a huge layoff of over 2,000 people, so we're starting to see the hit moving up in the ladder, moving up in the chain. And that, at that point, that's when we start to see huge issue with the economy. So I know Trump is trying to push to open today. Obviously it's up to each state's governor, but in the phases that we go through, I think it will be a gradual, because things will slowly start to open. But I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be as long as it was back in 2008, but the norm is definitely going to change, and we have to be prepared for that, for sure.
Yeah, every business needs to be taking a look at, how they're going to operate in the new normal. I mean, that's really what, even if they're shut down right now, they've got to be making plans of how they're going to operate and how they're going to maximize their revenues and profits in the new normal. So, and there's a lot of, there are, I've heard from a lot of restaurant owners, and I was a restaurant owner during the, Great Recession and the time after the Great Recession. And there are some silver linings, from an economic standpoint. One of them is with commercial rents. I was able to go back and when all my leases were up for renewal, able to negotiate, substantial reductions of in terms of rents, where, even, I sold most of my restaurants 2 years ago, but even when I sold them 2 years ago, they were still paying less rent 2 years ago than they were prior to the recession.
Wow.
So you're able to negotiate lower rents. The other thing, the positive thing is, with the high unemployment, is you're able to get you're able to find good employees. And of course, when you find them, if you treat them well, you can keep them. And so there's definitely some benefits in terms of finding good employees, when the unemployment rate is high. So
Yeah. And another thing that is kind of a blessing now is that you have the opportunity to really dive into your business and streamline it. So you can take this time off and see, like, what wasn't working, what was working, what was I spending money on that I shouldn't be, and how can I fix that going forward? Because you have this, blank slate, basically. I mean, pretty much all businesses are like, you're starting from zero. You're starting from a fresh, new beginning, really. And I think it's your opportunity to take that and run with it and kind of grow from it. So for the businesses that are going to make it through this, hopefully as many as possible, you have the opportunity to make changes that you've been wanting to for a long time, or didn't even know that needed to be made, because we're basically shining a spotlight on all of the things that weren't working at this point.
yeah.
So if anybody needs to negotiate their lease, they can definitely contact you. How would they be able to do that?
You can just, my phone number is 480-695-8447. Just give me a call, or my email is SeanBrown@blissrealtyaz.com. And I would love to help them. Like I said, every landlord tenant situation is unique. And I'm, like I said, I'm here to help anybody who's having that issue, and approach the best way to go with it, deal with their landlord.
Yeah. And you actually looked at my lease too before I signed it just 5 months ago. But, it was a huge help, because I think we don't always and know exactly what we're looking at in a lease. So it helps to be represented. I mean, you always want to have representation from somebody that knows what they're doing and what they're looking at, because you could get into a situation like this and could be completely screwed. So always have representation. You could reach out to Sean. I'll have his information in my show notes. And if you have any other questions or any other concerns about who to reach out to, we can definitely send you in the right direction for the Paycheck Protection Plan, or maybe references for people that we know for banks, or who you can reach out to, and get help. Get help, because this is an opportunity for you to move forward in your business for sure. So, all right. Well, thank you, Sean, so much for coming on and giving us some really good information. Hopefully the economy bounces back quickly, and you'll probably see, and maybe we can get some more information soon, and yeah, we'll be back in business. So,
Yep. I have faith in the American people. So we'll be back soon. Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for having me on.
yeah, thank you. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you all next week.